diversify quicker. Look down the road and see what's about to disrupt your industry. And I would have told myself, this is disrupting. And so you got to figure out how to get onto these social media platforms, because that's your new, broadcast.
Today we have Joseph Wilkins, founder and CEO of Funny Sales Videos. Welcome, Joe.
Thanks, Ryan. It's good to be here.
It's awesome to have you. We're interested. Tell us a bit about your business.
Gosh, well, 20 years ago, I started a video production company. We were primarily focused on producing television commercials. We started out doing infomercials, those 30-minute long shows.
Wow.
And then just over the course of time, we've seen results drop dramatically on television. I don't know about you, but I just don't watch television the way that I used to, if at all. Everything that I'm consuming is online, and that's the way our customers, profiles have gone. And so, backing up, our very first infomercial, we did over $200 million in sales.
Wow.
The little giant ladder infomercial. We were a small part of that production, but that's what kind of got us into the business. And then for 15 years, we took on many projects, worked with some very, very large companies to some smaller companies. But about 15 years ago is when we made the huge pivot away from television, away from what we call traditional, boring kind of sales pitchy kinds of commercials. And we really started to discover and learn how to make humor a big part of selling.
Yeah, great. And so where do you think that you bring the most value to the marketplace now?
Well, it's in our name, right? Funny Sales Videos, right? And so just to give you a compare and contrast as far as value to our customers, before we learned what we do now, which is, how do we take humor, apply it to relevant business principles of marketing, and use that to capture people's attention online, specifically on platforms like Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. Before we learned that, our biggest video that we'd ever done, maybe had 100,000 views, done decent sales, but nothing groundbreaking. When we launched Funny Sales Videos, our very first project was a very, very small company, very niche audience. We got over 7 million views on one campaign with over $500,000 of direct signups to a SaaS software, essentially. Fast forward to today, our biggest campaign is close to hitting 100 million views and millions and millions of dollars as far as sales is concerned. So what we typically tell people is, if you really know how to use humor right, you can literally transform your sales pipeline.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. And so could you give us maybe some tips or tricks, in injecting, because like obviously done poorly, it can have the opposite effect. It can be really cheesy. But what are some things that could help people kind of, apply that sort of principle?
Well, the short answer is we have a free ebook that you could download that shows you the 8 steps that we go through with every one of our projects. But real quick, I'll run through them. Number one is know your audience, know your market, know your customer. Nobody would ever write a letter and then decide when they hit the mailbox who to address it to. And yet that's what we do with a lot of our marketing. We just write, with the thought of why we started the company in mind, or the thought of what the product is, but we really sometimes forget who are we actually, who are we writing this letter to, whether that's a script or your website copy, a billboard. Really go and find out who is your audience. And a great way to learn that is to read hundreds of your customer reviews. And if you don't have that many, read your competitors' reviews. Understand what are people already saying about your products or your competitors' products. Step 2 is brainstorm as many bad ideas as possible to come up with a good one. You never come up with the best idea with the first idea. Quantity over quality. And then once you've got, we'll come up with 50 harebrained ideas before we distill it down to the 4 or 5 good ones. And ideas can be, really, really out there. There's a lot of viral style videos that have been, made millions and millions of dollars in sales with crazy ideas. But as long as you make them relevant to the problems that your customers already have, that's where they'll connect. The third step is scripting, and I tell people, do not try this yourself unless you are really, experienced and qualified to write your own scripts. We'll take our scripts through about 2 months of revisions. So we're starting with the marketing copy points, then we bring in a narrative storyteller to write the story. Then we'll bring in at least 5 or 6 trained professional comedy writers. And you may say, well, I don't know where to find those. There's many online freelance marketplaces where people, in their spare time, they'll write for you during the day. Maybe they're a copywriter at a bigger company, or maybe they're a stand-up comedian. But you got to look at the stuff that they've written in the past to, get an idea of what the future work will be. So spend a good amount of time crafting your script. And then the step 4 is adding the comedy. Comedians typically aren't the best at coming up with stories, but they're really good at taking a script that you've already written and adding jokes in, punching them up, rewriting lines for delivery and timing. So that's step 4 is focusing on the comedy and making sure you get the right people that know what they're doing. Step 5 is the production, and you'd think, as a person that's run a video production agency for 20 years, I'd say the most important part of production is get the right cameras and lights and spend all your money on that. No, the most important part of your production is casting the right actor. A lot of people fall on this. They say, I can act myself, or I've got a friend that went to acting school. We audition about 100 actors before we pick our roles. So think about, your local acting agency won't charge you anything to go out and audition a bunch of people. They only charge you when you pick the one. So take the time and find the right ones. Again, if you look at the examples on funnysalesvideos.com and other similar videos, you'll see that they're all revolving around one hero character that has a problem that your product or solution solves, but in a clever, creative, entertaining way. We hook your attention and then keep telling you a story that ultimately furthers, somebody down a sales thought process to, yes, I want to click below and find out more, or yes, I want to buy now, or whatever it is. So obviously, after you've picked your right actor, making sure that you do the best job possible, your results will be, corollary to how much effort you put into that. Step 6 is the editing. We've heard comedy is all about timing. So the difference between a good editor who understands how to cut out the fluff and speed things up, keep people's attention. A good editor is key. Step 7 is testing. You'd be amazed to know that we produce 32 different versions of every video that we release, because we're testing multiple different kinds of arrangements of how we deliver that information. We'll film 3 completely different opening hooks, because that's the most important part of your video, and we'll test which one does best. And then step 8 is the unfortunate truth that you have to forget about going organically viral, and you need to realize this is a business where you're investing advertising dollars into taking your video and putting it on social media and testing it to see, yes, our videos get millions and millions of views, but that's not organically. Typically only 10% of our views, if that, are organic shared. But if the money that you're spending is coming back to you, I kind of, I'll finish with this. Our philosophy is, it's like we build you a vending machine full of $100 bills, but it still costs $20 to use it. How many times are you going to want to use that vending machine? And that's what our videos do, is they grab people's attention and they convert at a much higher rate than typical videos that you'll see out there.
That is great, Joe. Thank you for breaking that down. So, what advice? Because it's a lot of work to produce a good quality video with good quality actors. With what advice would you give to a business owner or CEO who really wants to break through to that next level, and particularly within your area of expertise?
Well, the two things I would say is number one, if you want the results that you've never got, you've got to do something that you've never done, and that goes with a lot of different things in business. But if you're really serious about trying to increase the eyeballs that are coming into your brand, and then obviously the actions that people are taking, in 15, 20 years of running a video marketing agency, I've never seen anything that's as powerful and as repeatable as these kinds of videos. People no longer have the attention to sit and watch what I call a meat pitch, which is, I don't really care about you. I'm just going to throw up on you as far as all of my marketing points. They'd much rather be entertained. That's the reason they're coming to these platforms in the first place. So the closer your content can imitate the reason why they've come, the more likely you are to connect with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Changing gears a little bit, Joe. What had to change in you, and what had to take place in you personally, from like a mindset point of view, as you grew to to a hugely successful business.
Well, it's funny because the first 15 years in business, anytime a customer would call us and, whether it's me or my sales team and say, hey, we're seeing this really funny video, we want to do something like that. We would always say, sorry, that's not us. We don't do funny because, as you said at the very beginning, the worst thing you can do is try to be funny and end up looking silly. So I really had to go through a mind shift change of, this is what people want and I'm not delivering it. So how can I create a team? How can I go out and recruit the right kind of writers that will give me the confidence to be able to take my clients' money and say, yes, I can deliver something repeatably every time that's going to be funny, but not just funny for the sake of funny, build upon the foundation of our direct response background, which is nothing else matters if the phone doesn't ring or the clicks don't come in. It has to be about results. So I had to shift my mind over to the client is demanding it. So I got to figure out a way to deliver. And I think we have.
Yeah, that is great advice. And if you could go back 5 years and give your slightly younger self a bit of advice, what would that be?
I would say it would be to have made the transition quicker, because we
Okay.
sat a little while too long when we saw, TiVo and DVR and Hulu and Netflix and all of these streaming platforms that were cannibalizing network television, which is where all of our eggs were. And so I would say, you know, diversify quicker. Look down the road and see what's about to disrupt your industry. And I would have told myself, this is disrupting, and so you got to figure out how to get onto these social media platforms because that's your new, broadcast.
Yeah, definitely. And so finally, Joe, who can you best help? And if they want to get in touch, how can they reach out? You have a great guide for download?
Yeah, yeah. A lot of people say to me, well, who's your ideal client? And it's kind of funny because, we talk in terms of B2B, B2C, you know, uh, uh, enterprise companies. To me, it doesn't matter. I market human to human. So if the person you're trying to get a result from is a human, guess what? They have emotions and we can build a story based around that. Obviously, it's a totally different kind of humor when you're creating a video that's targeting B2B SaaS executives compared to the kind of humor you're going to use for an acne cream for a teenager. But as long as you're relevant and as long as you test all along the way, we're always testing our scripts to make sure that they're resonating with our target audience. The short answer is, regardless of what it is, if you know who your audience is, we can build a story for you. And you can connect with us just by going to funnysalesvideos.com and fill out the form at the bottom of the page.
Wonderful. Joe, thank you so much for coming on the show. We really appreciate the value that you've been able to unpack for us. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Ryan.